Justin Trudeau's Hail Mary pass. I'm Brian Lilley with TheRebel.media. Justin Trudeau is promising every single progressive idea floated over the last several years and wrapping it up in his plan called a fair and open government. Now, this ranges from promising that he will end the first-past-the-post system without saying whether he supports proportional representation or some other form of government over the current model. Don't bog him down with details. He's just going to change everything. He's also promising to make sure that any future Supreme Court justices are bilingual, which will further reduce the number of legal minds that can be called upon to sit on the top bench. And he's pretty much promising to make sure that Ottawa and Montreal types are well represented while the rest of the country can go to. You get the point. He's promising a gender-based analysis of every public policy decision because government actions affect men and women differently, he says. He's also promising gender parity in cabinet, which he says is an equal number of men and women, which apparently shows he disagrees with Kathleen Wynne's new sex ed curriculum and the 6 genders that will be taught to kids in Ontario. Hater. Now, I'm calling this a Hail Mary pass by Trudeau because the Liberal leader wants to be relevant again. It's no surprise he made his big announcement on the same day that New Democratic leader Thomas Mulcair was in Toronto making a big economic speech. Liberals have been falling in the polls. The NDP, they're gaining. In fact, the latest Angus Reid poll puts the NDP at 36% voter support, the Conservatives at 33%, the Liberals at 23%. But Trudeau and his team, well, they knew Mulcair was in Toronto. They knew that Harper would be nowhere to be seen and that much of the media are still gaga for their boy, so they could get a lot of attention. So they moved up their announcement to coincide with Mulcair's well-publicized speech on economic ideas, including his promise to cut taxes for small business. And the media, especially CBC, which went wall-to-wall with Trudeau in live coverage, then dropped Mulcair, after a few words of French, they responded strongly. But Trudeau's ideas, his plans, they don't actually add up. Let me explain why. First, Trudeau promises something that every party promises and then eventually doesn't deliver on, or at least fully doesn't deliver on once in power.
I'm here to talk about our comprehensive plan to modernize government. It starts with openness and transparency.
See, running on transparency is like saying, I like mothers and babies and apple pie. Who doesn't? Everyone likes those things. Will Trudeau deliver? His record says otherwise. Well, he promised open and transparent nominations for Liberal candidates, and he still claims that's what they're delivering, but the record is something completely different. There's numerous lawsuits, there's claims of favoritism, complaints about a process that's anything but transparent. I'm going to read off a partial list of problematic ridings. There's Toronto Centre, Toronto Danforth, University Rosedale, Ottawa Orleans here in the nation's capital. Out west, you've got Vancouver South and Vancouver East. In southern Ontario, you've got Brant. You've got Scarborough Southwest, Eglinton Lawrence, again in the Toronto area. You've got Ahuntsic in Montreal. There's Cumberland Colchester down the east coast. There's Brampton South, again in the GTA. There are more, but I'm going to end there because I think you're getting the point. He's not delivering on transparent nominations. Now, as for other examples of him not being on board with openness and transparency, well, as the NDP was quick to point out, back in June 2013, Trudeau was speaking publicly about opening up the secretive Board of Internal Economy that runs much of the House of Commons administration. And then his Liberal MPs voted behind closed doors to block the opening up of that committee. Now, as for his call to end the first-past-the-post system, Trudeau and his Liberals voted against proportional representation just last December. Do you trust them? I don't. Now, I mean, if you look at his voting record, then you look at what's in this new plan, it makes you think of another man that was for something before he was against it and vice versa.
I actually did vote for the $87 billion before I voted against it.
Now, Trudeau not only spoke about high-level stuff during his speech, he even got down into the weeds to show that he knows and he cares about your concerns when it comes to open government.
We'll reduce fees for access to information requests to $5.
Excellent. Lower the cost of an ATIP to just $5, except it already costs just $5 to file an ATIP. Now, he is promising to get rid of extra search fees. Now, that's not a bad idea, given some government departments, including CBC, have tried to bury people in search fees, but unreasonable search fees, they're already dealt with by the Information Commissioner's Office. This isn't a huge issue for anyone outside of the Ottawa bubble. But for those of you that are outside of the Ottawa bubble, don't worry. Trudeau is promising to give you what you want, an MP responsive to your needs.
Next, we'll make sure Canadians have a stronger voice in Ottawa, a voice that reflects and represents them. We'll strengthen the role of MPs, introduce more free votes, and reform question period to make it more relevant.
Yes, he's going to strengthen the role of MPs. He's going to give them free votes as long as it doesn't involve, say, letting them have a say on, abortion. Yeah, because Justin Trudeau wants free votes. He wants MPs to speak their minds, and as long as it's not on abortion or Bill C-51 or pretty much anything else he's made his mind up on. Look, every leader will promise free votes. Few are going to deliver the way the public wants. Now, let me deal with a statement Trudeau made about a little bit of history. He said that his past teaches him not to take on judges, unlike those evil conservatives.
I know that from experience. All I have to do is think back to my own father. As Prime Minister, he could be tough, even hard-nosed. And I'll tell you a secret, he didn't actually just say fuddle-duddle. But to use an example from my father's day, ministers didn't attack Supreme Court justices just to raise money and whip up support.
Okay, a few things here. In a speech about making government and parliament more respectful, he uses the example of his father telling the opposition to F off during a debate. That shows you how serious he is. I'll be respectful, not like those conservatives, because I learned from my dad who told people to F off in the Commons and then pirouetted behind the Queen. Give me a break. But what about this claim that his dad didn't attack judges? Does that hold up? Not according to the historical or media record. See, back in 1981, a BC Supreme Court judge named David Berger made comments critical about Pierre Trudeau's constitutional reform ideas. The comments so incensed Papa Trudeau that he said something should be done about that pesky judge. So something was done. Trudeau's then Justice Minister, a guy named Jean Chrétien, pushed for Berger to be investigated by the Judicial Council. He was investigated. He was reprimanded, all for speaking out against the government of the day. Look, don't use your daddy's record unless you know it, Justin. And for the record, Berger wasn't a pesky conservative. He was a progressive like you, a New Democrat who thought your father was wrong on some points. And for that, he was punished. He was pushed out of his job. Politicians love to claim that they're going to be open, and then they aren't. Getting angry at them for trying or failing is like getting angry at the scorpion for stinging you. Look, it's what they do. But what we can do is cast a critical eye at what they promise. And when I look at these promises, I find them wanting, lacking, and unwise. I also see a lot of promises that Trudeau once either campaigned against or that his voting record simply doesn't support. So you can believe him if you want. You can believe his promises if you want. Or you can be realistic and realize he's simply pandering for votes as his party struggles in the polls badly.